Good morning, everybody. It is an honor to be joining the International Federation of Domestic Workers to celebrate the International Domestic Workers' Day. In these times, perhaps more than ever, we as a global community need to get together and recognize the value of the work that millions of domestic workers around the world perform every day for households. COVID-19 has had devastating impacts also on domestic workers. Many have fallen sick, many others have lost their jobs and incomes and do not know whether they will get their jobs back once the pandemic will be over. Many migrant domestic workers have faced the additional challenge of not being able to return home. But all domestic workers have been exposed to the increased risk of violence and harassment. The response to COVID-19 of domestic workers' organization has been truly sensational and inspirational. We have seen how overnight they have started producing masks, delivering foods, and checking in on the health and well-being of other domestic workers. IDWF, through its Solidarity Fund, has certainly helped its affiliates in very important ways by assisting them in responding and meeting these very pressing needs. Since the adoption of Convention 189 on domestic workers already 9 years ago, dozens of countries have extended their labor and social protections to cover also domestic workers. But the pandemic has revealed the amount of work which still needs to be done. Millions of domestic workers still work informally without benefiting from paid sick leave or unemployment insurance. We should not let COVID-19 erode the gains made thus far or stop us from moving onwards in order to get further improvements to the working and living conditions. You can count on the ILO support to make domestic work decent for all domestic workers around the world. Good luck and have a nice day.
Dear friends from the IDWF, I'm honoured to send you greetings on this important day, June the 16th, when we celebrate the adoption in 2011 of Convention 189. The development and adoption of the Convention came after many years of struggle and lobbying by domestic workers. It's important to recall that the Convention stresses both the significant contribution that domestic workers make to the global economy, but also that this work continues to be undervalued and invisible. For me, the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted that contradiction, the significant contribution of workers that is not recognized or valued by society at large. We see this for many areas, in the health sector, in food production, in the care sector. Workers on the front line now rightly being recognized for their invaluable contribution to fighting the pandemic. But these workers need more than applause. This recognition of their value has to translate into improved conditions and better pay. For many domestic workers, we know that the pandemic has created enormous stress and fear. Fear of exposure to the virus if they continue working, and fear of hunger and not being able to pay their bills if they don't. In countries where citizens have taken solidarity action to establish food banks, we know that domestic workers are among the people depending on these for their survival. It underlines the importance and the struggle that we need to complete to get more ratifications and implementation of Convention 189, so that domestic workers, like other workers, have the protection of social security and furlough schemes. So celebrate today, but get ready to fight tomorrow for more ratifications and for justice for domestic workers. I wish you all a great day.
Salam Namaste to all my sisters in the International Domestic Workers Federation. I send you regards and greetings and solidarity from all of us at the Women's Rights Program of the Open Society Foundations. We celebrate International Domestic Workers' Day. We stand with you. We know that you are the ones on the forefronts of offering care to so many of us across the globe who could not live lives of dignity and respect without the care and support that domestic workers provide us on a daily basis. You are the ones who care for our children, for our elderly, who keep our homes and our lives moving in ways that we take for granted. It is our sincere hope as feminists and as activists for women's rights that the International Domestic Workers Federation will know that we will always stand with you in this moment of crisis, not just during the time of COVID, which has so exacerbated the situation for so many of you. We know that the challenges you face to a livelihood, the ability to remain in a place of calm, even as you watch your families being devastated and as you have to provide care to others, is deeply, deeply challenging. And yet we know that if anything, we have learned how deeply the domestic workers of the world are able to stand up and fight, not only for their rights, but for the right to a caring world and a caring economy. We hope that you know that all your sisters at the Women's Rights Program, myself, Marina Durano, Elisa Slattery, and Joy Chia stand with you on this day of celebration. And we also hope you know that you can count on us, not just through this crisis at COVID, but for the long term, to be able to work with you and support the incredibly important activities of the Federation. Thank you and take very good care.
Hi all, my name is Kristjan Bragason and I'm the General Secretary of EFFAT. For more than 10 years, EFFAT has been intensifying its support for domestic workers in Europe. At the EFFAT Congress last year, this engagement was further manifested. The significance of the domestic work sector in Europe is growing. A sector dominated by women whose skills are not recognized even though their work is essential. They are often overworked and underpaid. This has become even more apparent during the coronavirus pandemic. Unfortunately, this sector is dominated by undeclared informal work. About 70% of all domestic workers in Europe do not have contracts and no proper social protection. Together with the International Domestic Workers Federation, EFFAT will fight for the rights and protection of domestic workers in Europe. The 16th of June, the International Domestic Workers' Day, reminds us to stand together and support domestic workers in their efforts to organize and to fight for their rights. And I can assure you, EFFAT is with you in this fight.
Greetings, sisters and brothers. I'm honored to join you on this most fantastic of holidays. Greetings to my sisters, Myrtle Whitboy, President, and General Secretary Elizabeth Tang of the International Domestic Workers Federation. The whole world celebrates with you today. At the Solidarity Center, we're honored to partner with IDWF affiliates in 31 countries, and we stand with you in this time of crisis. We have donated to IDWF's Solidarity Fund, and we urge everyone joining us today to do the same. Brothers and sisters and comrades, we come together today in a most brutal time. We have lost hundreds of millions of jobs and hundreds of thousands of lives. In so many of our countries, the profile of people hardest hit economically and in terms of their health security have exactly the profile of domestic workers. Women, immigrants and migrants, day laborers, indigenous people and rural people and the poor, and people of color. So many of our fellow citizens who live without labor protections and the right to form unions. And they care for the people who are most susceptible to this virus, the elderly and the infirm. But when domestic workers rise up, we all win. In countries like the United States, Brazil, and South Africa, when domestic workers organize, they directly confront racism, xenophobia, and white supremacy. When migrant domestic workers organize, they are often breaking unjust laws and building justice. Our powerful sisters in the Dominican Republic have organized 20,000 domestic workers to register for the Social Security system, and our comrades in Peru have won minimum wages all in a time of quarantine. When domestic workers organize, we expand democracy. We upend disenfranchisement, raise women's voice and power, and transform all our labor movements. When domestic workers organize, we all win. Thank you for joining us today. Viva IDWF, Amanla!